From the Cronkite Studios in downtown Phoenix, this is Cronkite News.
After months of discussion, Phoenix City Council members might vote on whether to implement a civilian review board to oversee Phoenix Police Department with a history of excessive force complaints.
Plus, Arizonans on Capitol Hill fighting for life-saving vaccines for children in third world countries.
And how healthy is the Verde River that runs through our state? A conservation group reveals the tested waters report card.
Cronkite News starts now.
Good evening and welcome to Cronkite News on Arizona PBS. I'm Sean Rice.
And I'm Stephanie Rodriguez. Thank you for joining us.
Our big story, how should police incidents of force be reviewed in the city of Phoenix?
That's the question the Phoenix City Council is tackling tonight.
Cronkite News reporter Dylan McKim is outside the meeting. Dylan, this isn't the first time this issue has been talked about.
No, it's not. In the past year, Phoenix City Council has had 4 meetings to discuss a civilian oversight of the Phoenix Police Department. And today, council members could vote to implement a civilian review board. Members of community groups are here at the Phoenix City Council chambers to show their support for a review board that they say will create greater transparency and trust between the Phoenix Police Department and the public. We got to talk with some of those members to hear why they want a review board.
So the benefit of civilian oversight allows the community to become invested, because when you are critical of something, right, naturally we want to invest so we can have our own, not only opinions, but our own analysis of what's going on.
Also, we want to sit down and we want to be involved in looking at shaping better policy, implementing better training, and most of all, being able to look into what's happening with police brutality, police complaints, police abuse of power, and determine is that really what's happening.
We know that just as priests can't be the ones to hold other priests accountable and ministers can't be the ones to hold other ministers accountable, police cannot be the only ones to hold themselves accountable.
So here are the details of the 2 proposals. Proposal A, released by Mayor Kate Gallego, would create a civilian ombudsman position. This official would mediate complaints and conduct audits on use of force incidents. A community review board would conduct community outreach, but would not have investigative powers. Councilman Carlos Garcia is behind Proposal B. It would create a new city agency where staff would investigate police complaints alongside the Phoenix Police Department. A community review board would also investigate incidents and release reports for the police chief to consider. And when we talked to community members today, they told us they prefer Councilman Garcia's proposal. And we have not yet heard from the police union, who have said in the past they do not believe community oversight is needed. They are expected to speak tonight. In Phoenix, Dylan McKim, Cronkite News.
The U.S. Supreme Court has denied a new hearing for Phoenix double murderer James McKinney. The Arizona prisoner was convicted of 2 brutal murders nearly 3 decades ago and sentenced to death. McKinney's defense argued a history of childhood abuse was not considered when he was sentenced to die, and that McKinney deserved to be sentenced by a jury rather than a judge, while the Supreme Court ruled in an Arizona case in 2002 that juries must make the findings that help determine life or death. That ruling did not apply retroactively, so a new trial court proceeding would have to take place, but a coalition of 15 states urged the court not to grant the new sentencing hearing because it could affect other death row inmates.
The U.S. Supreme Court also ruled 5-4 that a Border Patrol agent who was shot across the border killed a Mexican teen cannot be sued by the teen's family. An unarmed 15-year-old was shot across the border of Juarez, Mexico and El Paso in 2010. His family says he was playing with his friends when he was killed. They were daring each other to touch the barbed wire fence on the U.S. side of the fence when a Border Patrol agent approached and shot him. The court's decision will likely have an effect on a nearly identical Tucson case where a teen in Nogales, Mexico was shot by an agent standing in Arizona.
A Stafford City councilman who was running for Congress has suspended his campaign after a drug overdose last week. A family member reportedly found Chris Taylor unresponsive in his home Wednesday night, and paramedics had to revive him with a drug that reverses the effects of opioids. Taylor was seeking the Republican nomination in the 1st Congressional District, which is currently held by incumbent Tom O'Halloran.
A group of Arizona advocates was in Washington today for the One Campaign, an organization dedicated to fighting world poverty. More than 150 turned out for the summit, pushing to fund life-saving vaccines in the poorest countries. Cronkite News reporter Gabriella Collage followed as groups made the rounds on Capitol Hill.
Arizona native Amy Campbell works in property management in Phoenix, but she found time to come to Washington this week because of what's at stake: funding for life-saving vaccines.
Think about how much money is out there for different things other than foreign aid, and helping end extreme poverty and preventable disease. It's a no-brainer for me. Saving lives, giving kids potential rather than poverty. That it was just something I had to get involved.
The One campaign was co-founded by U2 lead singer and activist Bono. And Campbell has been involved since 2005, when she signed up at a U2 concert. This is the 4th year for Jeremy Olin, a pastor at a church in Gilbert. He said working with the One campaign helps amplify the message his church is trying to send.
We're trying to reach the most vulnerable in our local context, but the reality is that even a church as large as our church can only do so much. Getting together with something like the One campaign allows us to be able to influence billions of dollars of aid, to save hundreds of thousands of lives.
The One campaign said that 1.5 million people died last year from vaccine-preventable diseases. That number included more than 600,000 children. Campbell said even a little funding could make a big impact.
It's so important because it's such a small part of our foreign aid budget. It's less than 1%. People are usually surprised about that.
The group met with Arizona lawmakers today to discuss funding that would allow Gavi, the Vaccine Alliance, to provide immunizations to those in need. Campbell says she would love to see a funding increase, but will be happy if it's not cut.
What we're in fear of is that any of it would be cut. We have a lot of life-saving programs already in place that have proven to save millions of lives, and so we can't stop our work. Of course, it would be wonderful to increase it, but if we can just maintain it, that makes all the difference.
In Washington, Gabriella Collage, Cronkite News.
A bipartisan group of House lawmakers introduced a resolution Friday calling on Congress to support Gavi, the public-private alliance working to deliver vaccines to developing countries. And advocates told us today they're hoping to see a Senate version soon.
Purdue Pharma, the makers of OxyContin, is rolling out an advertising campaign to let people know they can file claims against the company. It's an attempt at settling nearly 3,000 lawsuits over the toll of its opioids, most of which were filed by state and local governments. When clicked on, the online ad redirects people to a website where claims can be submitted. The effort began Monday as part of the company's bankruptcy proceedings, a normal procedure. But Purdue's almost $24 million campaign is unusually expansive.
Turnaround Tuesday didn't happen for stocks.
U.S. markets are back in the red, adding their sharp losses Monday amid coronavirus fears.
At its lowest point, the Dow shed 929 points, or 3.3% in the early afternoon, while the Borders and S&P 500 was already down 3%, and the NASDAQ Composite fell 2.7%.
News of a sudden increase in coronavirus case in Italy and South Korea tanked global markets on Monday, leaving the Dow to plummet more than 8,000 points, something it has only done twice before in history.
Coming up next on Cronkite News at 5, a change to school lunches is stirring up a debate on Capitol Hill. Find out how some cafeteria menus might get switched soon.
And yesterday we asked, do you think the first 2 years of community college should be free for Arizona students? Well, dozens of you responded. We'll take a look at some of your answers after the break.
Stay in the know on the go. At Cronkite News, we work hard to report the facts and keep you updated, whether we're on set or on the scene.
Taking it from the studio to the field. So I'm here in South Phoenix.
In Phoenix, we're just a click away. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, or find us online at cronkitenews.azpbs.org.
With wildfires, a scarcity of water, and other environmental issues facing the Earth today, it's critical to stay up to date with local impacts of a changing climate. That's why we created Elemental, Covering Sustainability, a multimedia collaboration between public television and radio stations. From climate change to water conservation to renewable energy and much more, Elemental covers the latest in sustainability news. Find our stories on our website, elementalreports.com.
You'll find there's never a dull moment in this house.
Welcome to Downton.
This house has no secrets.
Downton is catching up with the times we live in.
This calls for a toast.
It makes you want to jig about, though, doesn't it?
Heavens, we are quite a party.
Oh, goody goody.
By the year 2050, there will be more plastic in the ocean than fish. Before Professor Halden, I had an insane amount of passion, but I almost felt helpless because I didn't know how to use it. Professor Halden gave me a chance to make a difference. Being at a place like ASU allows you to take these big leaps. Ultimately, the biggest problems in the world cannot be solved alone.
The United States Department of Agriculture is weighing a plan to give schools more flexibility with their lunch menu in an effort to make it easier to offer healthy meals. But critics say this plan might do the opposite. Cronkite News reporter Kara Harris has the details.
Just recently, the USDA announced a new proposal aiming to provide more flexibility for meals served in schools. The expanded vegetable options and adjustments to breakfast fruit servings are supposed to make it easier for schools to offer healthy meals, but critics fear the opposite.
The rollbacks that came out from the Trump administration are really a handout to some in the food industry, particularly the potato industry.
Schwartz says looser rules mean schools will no longer have to serve a variety of vegetables.
There's 30 million kids who participate in the school meals program. The vast majority are low income and very low income in order to qualify for free or reduced priced meals. And what we're essentially doing is chipping away at how nutritious those meals are.
Diane Pratt-Hever, spokesperson for the School Nutrition Association, says the change will let schools customize menus and offer more culturally appealing meals.
Research shows school meals are healthier than the typical packed lunch, so we really want students to be eating school meals.
Maintaining meal appeal and cutting food waste is something all cafeterias are dealing with. But Schwartz thinks relaxing rules is not the answer.
When a school complains about math or English, you don't weaken the math standards or weaken the English standards. Why would you weaken the nutrition standards?
He says there are simpler solutions.
Make sure that the recipes are kid-friendly, name them fun things so they appeal to kids, get the kids actually involved in cooking the meals, but also give kids more time to eat.
Hever insists schools will still have to continue to meet standard nutritional guidelines.
The French fries that we see in schools today are typically sweet potato fries, and they're baked, not fried.
She said schools will continue to serve red and orange, dark leafy greens, and legume types of vegetables. Despite their disagreement on policy, both agree that the focus needs to remain on students' nutrition.
It's unfortunate that this has become polarized, this conversation. I can tell you that the people who work in school cafeterias really just want kids to eat the healthy meals that they're offering.
Public comments for this new proposal are being accepted until late March. In Washington, Kara Harris, Cronkite News.
Yesterday, we told you how Mesa Mayor John Giles announced a plan to make college more affordable for students.
The plan will offer 2 years of free community college for Mesa residents.
It's under the framework of Achieve 60 Arizona. The goal, to encourage high school students to go to college without being discouraged of the price of tuition.
Mayor Giles believes the program will need to be funded by a combination of public and private dollars. So we asked, do you think the first 2 years of community college should be free for all Arizona students? Why or why not? Hell says yes, because the return on investment will be huge. Educated citizens can earn more, which we can put back into the economy.
But Niles says nothing in life is free. It's called redistribution of wealth. Also, people don't value something when they get it for free. You'll see people signing up and dropping out.
And Karen said, I like it, but I think there needs to be a couple of requirements. 1, you must attend full-time. 2, you must pass all your classes with a C or better. And 3, if you don't complete an associate's degree in 4 or 5 years, then you must pay the tuition back. Then I say go for it.
It's not too late to join the conversation. Just go to our Cronkite News Facebook page to weigh in.
Up next, the Verde River flows through the northern parts of Arizona, all the way down to the valley. Got its first health checkup.
That a C+ grade on the report card is actually pretty good.
What conservationists say this grade means for wildlife, habitat, and water when Cronkite News returns.
Ready to watch the best of PBS anytime, anywhere, on nearly any device? It's easy with the free PBS Video app. Simply download the PBS Video app on your mobile or streaming device. Now you can watch the latest PBS episodes or catch up on the shows you missed. Discover new favorites from PBS and local content from your PBS station.
Conservation groups and researchers recently came together to find out more about the health of Arizona's Verde River. Cronkite News reporter Madison Staton joins us now. Madison, how healthy is this river?
The first ever Verde Watershed Report Card was released this month. The Verde River received a C+ grade overall. The score took into account the quality of the habitat, community, and water of and along the river. I spoke with Friends of the Verde River and the Nature Conservancy, who say that this grade doesn't mean the river is failing.
In the middle of the desert, there's a water source, bringing life. The Verde River runs over 170 miles through parts of northern Arizona and into the Phoenix area. The Nature Conservancy and Friends of the Verde River spearheaded efforts to create the first ever Verde Watershed Report Card.
What we see in the Watershed Report Card is kind of the impacts of drought and climate change, but also of that increasing human population.
The river's low base flow score is one of the key findings. This is calculated by the amount of water in the river prior to rain. The report looked at the river in June, after the winter rainy season, but before monsoon season.
That's probably the most concerning score. We got a D on that.
Shawnick says they've seen base flows decline for the last 20 years.
And we really need to think about that because that's being impacted by drought, so the amount of water going into the aquifer, and then by the amount of water being taken out by things like groundwater pumping and surface water diversion.
Water diversion is particularly personal for Jenny O'Callahan. Her cattle ranch includes a section of the Verde.
We feed our beef, and they're mostly grass-fed, and so we need grass. And grass doesn't grow without water. We have been irrigating our fields for some time.
She's making changes.
Currently, we're in a project with Nature Conservancy to put in irrigation sprinklers as opposed to flood irrigation, which is what we're currently doing.
Others like Nancy Steele also have an interest in conservation efforts.
We've spent so much time over the last 10 years creating priorities around preserving this habitat, around removing invasive non-native species, around creating and replacing it with habitat for the native species. Soon we're going to plant a bunch of cottonwood trees here too. So in the future you're going to see even more of the native plants here, providing a healthy place to live for the wildlife.
Sections of the Verde River are protected under the Wild and Scenic Rivers Act, which preserves specific waterways in the U.S.
So we're thinking about what's that wild and scenic river need. It needs good water quality. It needs to continue to flow. We need fish. We need the uplands in our watershed to be healthy.
Steele believes the life this river brings is not limited to the ecosystem.
There's something magical about a desert river. And the Verde is that way too. I come upon it and it's magic. You know you're in a place that's a ribbon of life.
The U.S. Forest Service helped fund the report card. The agency wants to increase public awareness about the health of the Verde River watershed and protect the water that goes to people in the valley and surrounding area. Live in the newsroom, Madison Staton, Cronkite News.
Right now, the city of Phoenix is celebrating Founders Day. The city was originally founded in 1881 by a Confederate soldier who was traveling through the Salt River Valley and saw potential for farming. One of the original settlers in his party suggested the name Phoenix, as it describes a city born from the ruins of a former civilization. Speaking of Phoenix, we saw quite a bit of rain over the weekend.
And with gusty winds today, we could be seeing our next cold front moving in. But does that mean more rain?
So I can't promise you any more rain this week, but we do have windy conditions throughout the night. Taking a look right now, as we can see, we're at 65 degrees in Phoenix, and those winds are coming out of the northeast at 18 miles an hour. That's going to stick with us as the sun goes down. Calming down just a tad, we've got winds coming out of the northeast at 11 miles per hour, trailing off into those high 50s right around that 8 o'clock hour. Now looking at cold temperatures across the state of Arizona for tomorrow, will be at 45. Here in Phoenix, the lower Colorado River Valley will have lows just around what we are. Our friends up north are going to be below freezing with 16 degrees in Grand Canyon, 19 in Flagstaff and Window Rock. Now, if you're in Phoenix for tomorrow, it's going to be beautiful weather for some baseball. Head out to a spring training game. Your Arizona Diamondbacks will be in Mesa, taking on the Oakland A's with 60s across the board. Now, we will be flirting with 70 across the valley for tomorrow, so it will be beautiful weather all around. Looking ahead at the next few days, we're going to make our way back to the mid-70s for Thursday, 80 degrees for Friday, and for our weekend, it'll be beautiful. 80 on Saturday, 75 on Sunday. We're going to kick off our work week with temperatures in the 60s. Rain chances are going to be 10% for Monday and Tuesday. Stay tuned to Cronkite News all week for updates on your valley storm chances next week.
Coming up, they say art heals. That's why a medical center in Flagstaff is adding something special to their halls.
Find out how this new change could help bring patients peace next.
The weather around Phoenix is just beautiful today. Let's take a look at the weather around the valley.
Thank you for joining us for the special edition of Cronkite News. Here are the top stories that we're tracking today at noon. Some of the best players for their program.
Cronkite Noticias is the Spanish-speaking division of Cronkite News, covering topics such as economics, education, sustainability, immigration, and border relations. Cronkite Noticias strives to serve the Spanish-speaking community in Arizona. Under the guidance of prominent Spanish-speaking professionals, students at the Walter Cronkite School of Journalism develop content for our broadcast partner, Univision, as well as on Facebook and Twitter. Explore Cronkite Noticias at cronkitenoticias.azpbs.org.
There's been a special change in the Flagstaff Medical Center's behavioral health unit.
An overdue remodel was going to leave the hospital walls plain, but an employee had an idea for something different.
Cronkite News reporter Tina Giuliano joins us now. She went to the medical center.
And Tina, what did you find out about this idea and how will it help patients?
Well, it started just like that, just an idea, and then now the whole inpatient unit is filled with murals. New state requirements don't allow anything on the walls that could cause injury. The medical center still wanted art on the walls, and that's exactly what they got.
Behavioral health, this is Angela. How may I help you?
In the behavioral health unit at Flagstaff Medical Center, color explodes from the once white walls. Murals in bright yellows and oranges showing oceans and mountains help connect those admitted here with art, and for some, their native culture.
I feel like there's also, too, the idea of kind of escaping, kind of just letting go and just kind of letting your mind relax. Utilize colors and designs and stuff just to kind of untangle what's going on in the mind.
A renovation began last year on the unit, and the artwork that once hung here was coming down.
I heard that nothing was going to be hanging on the walls.
So Dwayne Koyawina, a Hopi artist who works at the unit, got a group of local artists together late last year to paint murals to help bring these walls to life.
I've always thought it would be pretty cool to get like canvases or paintings from local artists to kind of just, you know, display for the patients, to kind of have them connect with people here in Flagstaff or like from their tribal affiliations.
For about a week, patients spend so much time in rooms like this one. But when they go out in the hallway, they find healing right on the walls. It took a few hands and 2 weeks to complete the project, and Koyawina says that it was important to explain to the artists that this was more than just another work of art.
I feel like these images are like kind of like that light on the other side of at the end of the tunnel.
The unit serves the large Native American population in and around Flagstaff. Leona Sinigeni is Navajo and a counselor here and says the murals help ground Native patients in their culture.
It brings you back to focus on maybe a memory of something of that picture, could spark something and hopefully give you that motivation to move forward to heal yourself.
When Dwayne is working at the unit, he sees the difference that the artwork has made on the patients.
In the end, I mean, seeing the few patients that have experienced these murals, I mean, it's doing exactly what we had envisioned it to do.
Now, Koyawina says they have plans to soon cover the adolescent unit with murals. Tina Giuliano, Cronkite News.
That's it for Cronkite News tonight.
For top Arizona stories anytime, go to cronkitenews.azpbs.org.